Good afternoon, this is MetLoop meteorologist Nancy Koslick here with an update on today's forecast. We're continuing to track a messy frontal boundary as it makes its way into the eastern half of the country this afternoon, and of course we're continuing to see lots of widespread rainfall, higher elevation snow, and wind for the west coast this afternoon. So as far as those temperatures go for today, we're actually seeing some really nice conditions out there. We've got the 70s extending all the way up through the Carolinas, up into the Great Lakes region as well, and it's nice and mild all the way through the center of the country. We've got some high pressure built in, and we're seeing those temperatures in the 50s and 60s, even as far north as up into the Dakotas and Montana. So everything has been really beautiful for this President's Day in some areas. Others, again, are still seeing plenty of rainfall and some thunderstorm activity, especially down into the south, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But as far as the overall pattern goes, we are continuing to watch this very long frontal boundary that continues to track its way to the east through the country. And of course, along with this, we're seeing widespread rainfall in the north and some of that thunderstorm activity possible down into the south. So for the rest of today, we are looking for the potential for some severe weather, especially from about East Texas down through Louisiana and along the Gulf Coast there. So we could see some pretty strong thunderstorms popping up. These would have some very high wind gusts and the possibility of tornadic activity as well. So pay close attention to the weather this afternoon if you live down into the south as we watch these thunderstorms continue to track their way on through. And as far as the west coast goes, we're seeing just more of that wet weather. The overall pattern really just continuing to stream in that moisture, especially into California, more in the way of rainfall. We're also seeing some pretty high totals of snow up in the higher elevations, and that shower activity extends all the way up through into the Pacific Northwest as well, and back into western Montana and Idaho. So this wet weather is going to stick around for at least the next day or two as we continue to watch a low out in the Pacific. As we continue to watch all of that moisture stream off the Pacific Ocean and into the Pacific Northwest as well as California, we're going to keep those snow total forecasts very high over the next couple of days. In fact, we could see over 2 feet for portions of the Sierra Nevada mountains. A little bit less as you work your way a little to the north, back into the Cascades and portions of Oregon. We're going to see somewhere around 7 to 10 inches for some of us, but those higher totals will remain down into the northern and central California region, and of course conditions can be very dangerous up in those higher elevations. Here's a look at what to expect for the rest of this afternoon and the overnight hours tonight. And notice we're going to continue to see that activity, especially down into the south, really start to fire up in the later afternoon hours. We'll get that heat of the day really involved, and of course that moisture off the Gulf of Mexico, and potentially see some very strong thunderstorms popping up for portions of Louisiana. Also could be heading into Mississippi, and all of that activity really is going to continue all the way to the north along that frontal boundary and up into the Great Lakes region, but the strongest storms are expected down into the south along the Gulf Coast. So please, if you live in this area, be sure to pay close attention to the weather for this afternoon, because we could see some very strong wind gusts, and we can't rule out the possibility of tornadic activity with these as well. Otherwise, we're going to continue to watch the west coast not only for the rest of today, but the next couple of days as we keep seeing that really consistent stream of moisture continuing, and plenty in the way of higher elevation snow with the lower elevation rainfall, and maybe even some ice worked in there for portions of Washington. So again, in the west coast, please be very, very careful on especially the roadways. Any kind of travel can be difficult over the next day or so, and that's because of these very wet and very messy conditions that will be continuing. As always, you can receive more of your weather information on our Facebook page, as well as Twitter and metloop.com. Thank you very much for watching this afternoon. Stay safe and have a great day.